Hi, my name is Robert DeVincentis. Actually, Robert Thomas DeVincentis, because I'm an author and I use my full name, and that's the only way you'll find the book. Because there's a lot of authors, same name, same kind of book name. So this book is called The Book of Kings, and Robert Thomas DeVincentis. And in this book, in its final, it's Aftermath Science, which is based on science, nature, man, and God, the four subjects, in which I'm the historical origin curator of the history of the world, basically on those four subjects, from the beginning, the historical origins, to the present. And I give talks on various subjects about aftermath science. And one of them is the astrophysicists, and these are great scientists that have mathematical calculations and things that they do. And there's no doubt that they're brilliant in their field. However, what they do, and which they won't tell you, is that they don't take into the assumption that God created the heavens and the earth. And I'm the one that refuted the idea that, even though the earth is a tiny speck in the entire universe, it was the first thing that God ever made. If you look at the Bible in the chronological order, it's older than anything else. And yet today's scientists and astrophysicists can't come to that conclusion. No, because they don't take into account the chronological order of things that God did and how he protected the earth, and saying that it was good, and he created the sun and the moon after to bring light on the earth. And I went over these things too with the stars of heaven that give us the times and the seasons, and the light which causes the day and the night, and we calculate our days from that. And then we have the Bible itself and the church, which has the record of all the way from the beginning of creation to the very end. So that means that all the days are calculated in this. The earth is referenced and is the integral part of God's timepiece. So even though the earth may go around the sun now, at one time it was the center of the universe, it still is the center of God's timepiece. And I talked about time being created at the same time light was, and that light in and of itself cannot be something that just took billions of years, but it was a simultaneous, instantaneous, by command, that lit up the heavens. It didn't take billions of years to determine that. And also the species on the earth, if God named the animals, and then, well, he certainly named the dinosaurs and that kind of thing. So at any rate, that's where we're at. And for the main part of it, though, these astrophysicists, what they do is they project that the earth somehow is going to be destroyed, and then they look out into the cosmos and then they find an asteroid, and then they call the asteroid, I guess the name that they're trying to give to it is some kind of Egyptian name that's got the word destruction or something involved in it. And what they're saying, it's on course basically to hit the earth, and that if it did, well, then it would create tsunamis and destroy a lot of people by water, which God said he wasn't going to do that again. So there's a lot of contradictions here, and of course science doesn't take into the effect that the dinosaurs themselves were not destroyed by an asteroid, which is absolutely goofy. They don't even mention the flood, and that's how a lot of these animals died. The breath of life that was in all the animals was destroyed. by the water. And it wasn't just a local thing, and I went over this again. It went over the highest mountains, ranges, and water seeks its own level. So whatever the water was on this side of the earth, the sea level would be the same on the other. And if it went over the highest mountains by 3 cubics, then it covered everything. And whatever was in the ark, that's what survived it. The DNA of the 8 people and so forth that brought forth. So there's a lot of scientific information that I talk about, and especially in nature, because again, when we look at aftermath science, it's not a science of science creating science in nature. It's a fact that everything was created miraculously, and then the nature was already built into everything. The man and the woman didn't come about as the birth canal of a woman. They were created separately, but from that, they then populated the world, and we are the copies of them. In other words, they were great in their appearances, their beauty, and these kinds of things. This whole idea that man developed into something is absolutely erroneous. So there you have it. A lot of times you don't have the same information, and I'm like 1 in a billion trillion. You're not going to find anybody like me that thinks the way I do. But whatever I say here is in accordance to the Holy Writ and the Scriptures, and what God had related when He made everything. I was just reading the other day, some scientist got in trouble because he said man lived longer, like almost 900 to 1,000 years before. So who's a better model? Was it Adam or the man living today? If he's only going to live to 120 years, and that's the max, most of the time you don't even live that long. You live about half your life because you're not taking care of yourself. So the astrophysicist that says that there's a asteroid that's going to come toward the Earth, and it's going to kill everybody, and it's the size of a football stadium if it hits the ocean or if it goes through and misses. These are the people out there that, even though they have great telescopes, they're bad witnesses, because they're talking about things light years away. Does anybody even know or comprehend what that means? No, you're not. The average person can't comprehend 1,000 light years or whatever. So how could you be a witness to say that you know something that far away, or what it's made of, a composition? You're not going to do that. So here we go. We have these great people with notoriety. They're doctors, and yet they're about as far from the truth as you can get. And they're bringing great fear on the earth. And in their description of how God is not really making the earth good, a good place to be, but it's open to destruction, and all kinds of bad things are going to happen here, and the climate and everything else is going to change, this and that and the other. Well, in fact, maybe at some point in time it might be true, but it's not something that you need to be worried about. That God in His own time will bring about the new heavens and a new earth. Will take this one away, and then we'll be in a new place with God. So, and that's at the time when time itself is abolished, and then you enter into eternity. So you got an asteroid coming toward Earth, and everybody's in great fear. It's going to be here in a couple years. And so now what they're doing with science is, we could send out some type of space vehicle to catch up to it and maybe knock it off a little off its course or something. And that's a dangerous perspective to have, that now you're messing with things that orbit Halley's Comet and things like these things. You're going to go out there and you're going to knock it off course somehow or another by a couple degrees. how do you know you're not going to cause a great destruction? Anytime that man messes with God's creation to the degree where he's changing something, he did it with the honeybee and it turned out to be a killer bee then after he messed with the genetics of it, not realizing that the economy of God, and he's trying to make himself better than God by creating things. So if you knock a comet off course or an asteroid or whatever, you might be causing your own demise where this thing isn't really scheduled to really hit the earth, and you're discounting God and his creation, and you're not proclaiming God. The scientist, by today's standards, is making his science his God. He can't say God, or he can't promote God in any way, because if he does, then there's no reason in the world why he can't include God, and he can't do that. So here we are in the most technical age in history, where we have warring nations. Everybody's got atomic weapons that could obliterate the world, and nobody knows anything really. Do they really? But so these doctors of the cosmos, asteroids and all this other kind of stuff that they're trying to say, and black holes and everything, they're creating an illusion of demise with the people here on Earth, bringing great fear, and yet you have to, these are the people that have the stage to say these things, and people like me that say things that are direct contradiction to what they're saying are hardly ever heard, and we don't fit into the society. So I said, well, okay, if you look at me as a person, and I said I'm the author of Aftermath Science, that's a big deal. There's not too many people, in fact there is nobody that can say the things that I say. If there is somebody that says something on any of my talks or in my book, if you get it, a lot of that is first-hand knowledge. They're taking it out of the book or some other way, and you can't claim it as your own, and yet there is no copyright on the truth. The things that are in the book that I wrote are not going to fit into the realm of the things here that you're seeing here on Earth. And it's really a shame, because people are not putting their trust in God. They're putting their trust in men and princes and these type of things, where you're trusting God and his goodness and the way he's created life here. It's just so incredible, the places, the earth, the way it was made and everything, and how everything came about as a result, not of science or nature, because they had it built into it at a miraculous beginning, and those things have a predisposition that bring about the same things over and over, like a tree, a blade of grass, a human being, other animals. Now, if the animal kingdom, for some reason or another, was able to have offspring by species that might be in the same realm as they are, that's a possibility. I mean, you could also try a donkey and a horse, and you get the mule, and there's no offspring then. It's like some kind of hybrid that doesn't have a future with the offspring that would come about again and again. So these are the things that take men and women away from the belief in God and the trust that he has. So in final, what are we talking about here? Is there a law? Are laws of physics that these astro physicists and all these people are using, physics and everything else to determine everything? Which is greater? Is the written law that God has, the Ten Commandments, isn't it greater? Wasn't that the outward view that God had when he created everything? Wasn't that the same law that he gave to Moses that we could live by? Isn't it the same law that when Christ, the Word of God, the incarnate, comes to the earth, he lives under the law? isn't he the one that keeps the law? So God's not telling you to do something that he wouldn't do. And that's why the world comes to a bitter end, because the sins of heaven or earth reach the heavens, and then it shakes everything. And those are the laws of physics that are shaken, and they don't hold, and they fall apart at the seams. So with that in mind, and I happen to be a Christian, a Roman Catholic, it doesn't mean that the church embraces the things that I say. However, they do have creeds. And if you listen to the creeds, I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, born with the Father before all ages, God from God, true God from true God, begotten, not made, consubstantial with the Father. Through him all things were made. There you go. Now, who today do you know, any scientist that would agree with that, but yet you go into the church, if you're a Catholic or some other Protestant or whatever has a similar creed, aren't you saying the same things? Isn't it contradictory to what you're seeing out there and to what you believe here on earth? Of course it is. Now, whether or not the church is going to embrace what I'm saying, they don't have to. What I'm telling you, though, is that what I'm saying and espousing here is something that has to do with thousands and thousands of scriptures, in which I know quite well. Not too many people could say that. And, we have to be careful that we're not taking scripture out of context or whatever. And I haven't. Whatever God says in his word and whatever I'm saying here corresponds to that. Now, whether or not the church has made a doctrine or some other encyclical that says, oh, I agree with that or whatever, that's maybe not something they're ever going to do. Who knows? But at the same time, what's happening today with these astrophysicists and scientists, aren't they really trying to take the place of God? Aren't they scaring everybody to the point where they're running out into the night wondering what's going to happen to them the next day, instead of putting your faith in God? So that's the whole idea of the talk here tonight, is to put you on another level, the level where you might be able to say, hey, wait a second, I'm not going to be taken in by all this stuff, and I'm going to believe what this person says, that we do live in a good world, even though wars are inevitable, looks like, or things might happen, or dangers. But we're supposed to rely on God to keep us and his angels, and to support us, and to keep evil away from us. And I believe in that, and that's where most people should be in their thoughts, instead of having people like the scientists, even though they're great, and even though they have the education, even though they have the mathematical calculations of different things, they could be wrong. They could be a bad witness to you. So my prayer is that you walk away from here tonight with a greater knowledge that God is helping you and that he cares for you. Thanks for listening, and have a great evening.